Where will the top quarterbacks in NFL free agency and the draft land this off season? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch here with my quarterback landing spots for free agency and the draft this 2024 NFL off season. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and let me know in the comments section below where you believe each of the top names in free agency and the draft will land. What is their final destination this off season? This is a mix of what I think will happen with also the destinations that make the most sense and the destinations that in some cases I would like to see happen. Let's begin with the quarterback that will kick this whole circus and quarterback market off, and that is none other than Kirk Cousins. Where will Kirk Cousins go? You let me know in the comments. My destination is back home to the Minnesota Vikings. I just don't see the Vikings letting Kirk Cousins walk. I can't imagine it. Now, maybe he could go to the Falcons. Maybe Sean Payton's desperate and he calls Kirk Cousins. Maybe he heads home to the Commanders. I don't even know. The Patriots. Will they make a move for him? It's possible. But we've already heard Kevin O'Connell stress that he wants to keep his quarterback, Kirk Cousins. And I believe that the Vikings will at least get Cousins back for one more season. He's coming off a torn Achilles. I think that's going to drive his market down across the NFL. And I think teams that might have been in on Cousins if he had, let's say, taken the Vikings to a wild card berth or had a really nice Pro Bowl season once again in 2023, maybe they would be in on Cousins. But I just think this injury makes it more likely that he goes back to Minnesota on a 1, 2, possibly 3-year deal. He's getting up there in age. It's hard to commit to him. But he's a good quarterback, and he's going to have a pretty nice market this offseason. But I just don't see him going anywhere. So to the next quarterback, I've got Baker Mayfield, also staying home. It's no coincidence that the two biggest names in NFL free agency will likely stay with their teams. And that's because those teams want those players to stay. Is there anything else I need to say here? They've been productive. They've been successful. And Baker, here's the thing about Baker Mayfield. He has been entirely dependent throughout his career on the situation around him. And if you're Baker Mayfield, why would you want to leave a place that you just made the playoffs? You just won a division. You're in a weak division. Tampa's a nice place to live and play. Why would you want to leave Tampa Bay? Especially if Mike Evans comes back, you still got Chris Godwin there. You have Tristan Wirfs protecting your blind side. Rachaad White to hand the ball off to. Just a nice group of veterans on the team. The Bucs want to run it back. They want to win the division again. They want to get even better. They want to push their limit. And Baker played well for them. I don't see why they wouldn't want to re-sign him. He's rewarded after coming in and taking this team to the playoffs following losing Tom Brady, literally the greatest quarterback of all time. So Baker has to go back to Tampa, and I just don't see it any other way. It's a fit for both sides because other teams are going to have questions about Baker if he can be as successful in their system, given that he was kind of all over the map in Carolina, in Cleveland, in LA. He's been on so many teams already, although he was a first overall pick not that long ago, 2018. It's kind of crazy the career he's already had. That's why he finds a home with the Bucs. The next quarterback, I got Russell Wilson finding his way to the Atlanta Falcons. This one might be a little bit surprising to most people because this is not the quarterback that most people have listed to go to the Falcons. But when you really think about it, it makes sense. First of all, the Falcons probably want a veteran upgrade at the position. They're probably not going to be trading up in the draft to invest in a rookie. They just went through the Desmond Ridder experience, and we've already heard Raheem Morris say, if we had halfway decent quarterback play, which is pretty much what he said, reading between the lines, this team would have made the playoffs, and I might not even be the coach right now. He did say that. So he called out Desmond Ridder, and Russell Wilson's a proven winner. Russell Wilson actually played better in 2023 than he did in 2022. And there's a variety of different things that make this a fit. First of all, I think unlike a Justin Fields, Russell Wilson fits the offense of Zach Robinson. It's a West Coast style, play action oriented, utilizing mobility to get outside the pocket and throw on the move off of play action, Sean McVay-esque system. And a guy like Fields is maybe a little bit more limited with his knowledge of offense, his ability to work off of those concepts. We've already seen Russ be successful in this type of offense with Shane Waldron in Seattle. So Russ has experienced this system. He's also shown to be a quarterback as of late that if he is given a good defense, if he's given a good running game, he can be a game manager, but can also sprinkle in a hint of mobility and escape for first downs, make plays at the end of the game, manage a game, not turn it over, and then make some big throws through the air because he's still got a strong arm. The thing with Russ is you don't want him to carry the team any longer. He's not that type of quarterback anymore. But on a team like Atlanta in a weak NFC division, he could contend with this team in this division. He could control the game. He knows how to win those type of games. He has his entire career. He could add a little bit more playmaking ability to the offense, and it's a system that really does make sense. There's some carryover from Seattle days. And then on top of that, Sierra, I believe, his wife is from Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe there's some ties there from a family perspective, which would make even more sense. On top of that, if you're Atlanta and you're wanting a veteran quarterback, but you're not wanting to spend money like on Kirk Cousins, well, Russ could come cheaper because Russ is going to be making $39 million from the Denver Broncos. You could sign him to like a $5 million contract this year on a one-year deal, on a prove-it deal, and then get your thing kick-started with a really appealing coaching staff with Raheem Morris leading the way, a defensive coach, which Russ usually kind of tends to do well with those defensive-minded guys like Pete Carroll, and then an offensive coordinator, a young up-and-coming one that will have an opportunity to prove that he can turn around Russell Wilson's career in Robinson. So this makes sense in a variety of ways, and I would think this is a great system fit. This is a great personal fit for Russell Wilson, and I see this one happening more than other people do. The next quarterback is Justin Fields. And because Fields is not going to be traded to the Falcons, I believe the most likely destination is the Raiders. I also thought about the Steelers and I thought about the Patriots, but the Raiders do make a lot of sense. First of all, he just seems to fit the Antonio Pierce style that I'm kind of thinking of, which is like a great athlete, a big time playmaker, a guy that can run. He's got a cannon for an arm. He fits Raider-style big play football. It's not always pretty with Justin Fields, but man, can this guy explode. He's explosive. He's a great athlete, and he can make big plays. And I think the Raiders are trying to get back to that just win, baby mentality. Let's get that 40 clock going. Let's get the speed. Let's get the athletes. And Justin Fields could fit a team that has a pretty solid defense already in place with the Raiders and has a decent running game, wants to run the ball, and Pierce and this Raiders team could perhaps really press those buttons with Justin Fields. They could play through their defense. They could run the ball. They have a quarterback that can be a run threat. They've got Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. They've got some weapons where Fields can hit some one-on-ones and make it easy in the passing game for him. They've got kind of a decent offensive line core. So I feel like the Raiders, this fit would make more sense to me than Atlanta. I don't really feel like the Atlanta offense is quite the fit. But Luke Getsy, coming from Chicago, already has knowledge on Justin Fields, what works with Fields. And near the end of the year this past season, it was working, right? They really went on a good run there with a good defense on the other side. Fields was able to manage most of those games, able to make a lot of plays in a lot of those games. And he's starting to learn the position a bit better and continuing to have some nice connection with an offensive coordinator and play caller would make a lot of sense. I also don't get the sense that Getsy and Fields have a bad relationship at all. And I also get the sense that the Raiders are not in a position to draft a quarterback or trade up for a quarterback. They have needs elsewhere. They probably want to just support a younger quarterback that they can grow with, but they also don't have to pay right away. So Fields and the Raiders just makes a lot of sense in a variety of ways. They're not in position to draft a quarterback. They are not in position to really trade up for a quarterback because they need other things. And this is a young guy with still potential that perhaps could be your franchise quarterback. So it just makes a lot of sense in those different ways, shapes, and forms. The next quarterback destination, I've got Mac Jones getting traded to the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton. Obviously, with Russell Wilson going to the Falcons, I do believe Russ is probably going to get released, although he could get traded, but it's more likely that he's going to get released and then picked up by a team, which I believe will be the Falcons. In this case, I think the Broncos will be looking for a younger quarterback that's on a manageable contract because they're already having to pay another quarterback a lot of money who's not even on their team. And Sean Payton is going to look at the market and say, what quarterback fits my system? Which quarterback do I like the traits? Which quarterback has shown maybe a hint of potential, but has been put in a bad situation? And which quarterback maybe gives me the best chance to run my offense the way I want to run it? And who's going to run my offense the way I want to run it? And to me, all of those boxes are checked by Mac Jones. To me, McCorkle gives Sean Payton a quarterback that will run his system, that can handle all of the verbiage at the line of scrimmage, handle the task of being the quarterback at the line that's calling protections, the guy that's calling audibles, the guy that understands coverages, can read a defense, the guy that maybe is a little bit limited physically, but is accurate, knows where to go with the ball. He also has some Alabama connections on the team already, like Jerry Jeudy, and it feels like with Courtland Sutton, Jeudy, some weapons, Sean Payton, an offensive coach, that is so much different for Mac Jones that it feels like it could be a fresh start for Mac Jones to actually potentially succeed with a pretty good offensive line already in place. I don't think Denver is just going to outright kick this season to the curb. I think they're going to take a chance on a younger guy, see what they have in him, see if he can be the answer. And if not, it's just a bridge option. But Mac, a lot like Justin Fields, has a manageable contract. You can decide on the fifth-year option. You can decide on what's going to happen with Mac Jones. And then you can also maybe put yourself, if you're not good enough this year, in position for next year in the draft or whatever. So Mac Jones, he's a quarterback that's run a Josh McDaniels system and had his most success in that system. Sean Payton's system kind of can have some similarities. So I would say that Mac Jones and Sean Payton would be a good match. And I think that Mac Jones also needs an offensive-minded guy, but a hard coach, like a guy that's going to coach him tough. And I think that could be Sean Payton. So this match makes a lot of sense for me in a lot of different ways. The next quarterback destination is Zach Wilson, another quarterback from that 2021 quarterback class that's been severely disappointing so far. I have Zach Wilson getting traded to the Los Angeles Rams for potentially a late round draft pick. I like this one a lot. This isn't really one that I would go out on a limb and bet, but I do feel like Wilson is going to go to back up somewhere and maybe develop somewhere. And obviously, he's not going to have to start in LA. They have Matthew Stafford. But at the same time, he's probably going to go somewhere with a quarterback ahead of him that's maybe a little bit older, and that's Matthew Stafford, right? So Stafford is also kind of somewhat similar in terms of traits, right? Arm strength, kind of release point. I feel like Stafford is also a much better mentor than potentially an Aaron Rodgers would be or could be in terms of he just does things right. Stafford's good off the field. On the field, he works hard. He can probably teach Zach Wilson and tutor Zach Wilson. Wilson can learn from Stafford just even without being taught. Just watching him play. And then he can learn from Sean McVay. And Sean McVay might want to take a risk on a guy that was a second overall pick. a kid that has a lot of traits, that has mobility, that has a strong arm, that can operate a play action system. And perhaps his best moments in the NFL have been in those moments where, okay, he's under center, he's running play action, he's booting to the right, and he's trying to find a crosser down the field. And then Zach just needs to get more mature. I've said this many times, but I feel like Zach has quarterback starting traits. The problem is mentally, he's not been able to handle the pressure of the NFL in New York or New Jersey. And then he's also, just had a tough time with the Jets organization, the coaching, the defensive coach. He's not really had an offensive-minded guy sit him down and teach him the position. Sean McVay could do all of that. I think there's a lot of upside in this potential move for the Rams, and why not? They could actually take this chance this offseason. They have the draft capital. They have some salary cap. It's not like Zach's really going to cost a lot. They can get him in the building. Stafford, we don't know how many years he's going to have left. Potentially, they have the answer after Stafford leaves, or even if Stafford gets hurt this year, at least they have a competent player that has started plenty of games in the last couple of years that can step in and perhaps run the offense a bit better than the backups they've had as of late. So the Rams trade for Zach Wilson. The next quarterback destination, we've got Gardner Minshew going back to Indianapolis. This one's pretty simple. Don't have to spend a lot of time on it. I just don't think the Colts are going to let Minshew go unless Minshew gets pure starting money in free agency. I just don't see how the Colts don't recognize how valuable Minshew's presence was as their backup, understanding that Richardson is injury prone. Minshew already has multiple years in the offense, and he nearly brought them to the playoffs. You're thinking that the Colts, or at least I'm thinking that the Colts will be probably a better overall roster. So if Minshew's able to replicate his decent performance from 2023, Minshew could be a 10-win quarterback with this type of offense, with this type of team. And that is really nice to have as a backup option behind your potential franchise quarterback that is injury prone because of the amount that he runs and because of how physical he is. So he puts himself in a lot of harm's way, does Anthony Richardson. So having a reliable option on your bench like Minshew is extremely valuable. Steichen also comes from Philadelphia, which is a place that really does value backup quarterback options. Nick Foles, they signed Marcus Mariota, they signed Gardner Minshew. They like having backup quarterbacks, so Minshew to the Colts makes sense. Next, Ryan Tannehill to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one is very obvious, and I think it's surface level, but it's also making a lot of sense. So first of all, I think the Steelers want to bring in a quarterback that can start for them, but also is willing to compete for the job and not necessarily having to be named the starter. So that's where I get a little bit kind of on edge when it comes to a Russell Wilson or a Justin Fields. Both guys feel a little bit more entitled. Russ because of his career and Fields because of his draft status. Ryan Tannehill feels like a guy that I could see being a high-end backup. He's done it actually once in his career already behind Mariota. Then he got his shot in Tennessee. And he could compete with Kenny Pickett for the job, the starting job in Pittsburgh. And I still feel like the Steelers want to leave that window open for Kenny Pickett to potentially win the job and show that he's improved as a young quarterback, as a first overall asset that they spent a high pick on. So Ryan Tannehill knows the offense of Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith brought the most success to Ryan Tannehill's career. So Tannehill, it would be advantageous to go where Arthur Smith is. They'd have a reliable option if he's a backup to be able to turn to rather quickly if they need to. He wouldn't need a lot of reps in training camp. You'd still be able to focus your attention on Kenny Pickett. It's not like turning the page to Russell Wilson. It's not like turning the page to Justin Fields. So that's where I feel like Tannehill just gives the Steelers more leverage in the situation and more options in what they possibly want to do with the future of their quarterback position. But if Pickett does end up stinking this year, at least they have a reliable guy that's been to the playoffs a few times, that's experienced that can step in and perhaps be better than he was in Tennessee last year and still has maybe a hint of, you could say, maybe it was the team around him in Tennessee, not Tannehill really regressing, and you could pick him up cheap this offseason. So that's what I'm thinking when it comes to the Steelers. The final free agent quarterback to predict is Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is a low-key option for a team looking to perhaps the draft for a young quarterback, but also wants an option as a bridge quarterback. And I think Jacoby Brissett makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons to the Patriots. First of all, they drafted him when he started his career back in 2016. He was the third string quarterback for Super Bowl champion Patriot team, and he actually played a couple of games for the Patriots. The fan base is familiar with Jacoby Brissett. The fan base likes Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is a well-respected veteran that you also know is not trying to fight necessarily for a starting job. He's been there. He's done that. He hasn't quite proven himself, but he's also shown that at times when he's given his opportunity in Washington last year, I thought at times he outplayed Sam Howell. In Cleveland, I thought he actually had a really nice season, and overall, Jacoby Brissett 2 years ago outplayed any quarterback other than maybe Joe Flacco last year for Cleveland. So you look at Jacoby, and then also he has familiarity with the system. He's played for Van Pelt in Cleveland. So there's crossover there for Van Pelt, Jacoby, for understanding the skill set, what works with Jacoby, what doesn't work with Jacoby. And overall, as a Patriots fan myself, I like Jacoby. I've always liked Jacoby. I think he's underrated. He brings good arm strength. He knows how to play in the weather. He's going to be able to play in a run-heavy, play-action-oriented offense, which is what I think they're going to run. And he can complement a team with a strong defense, as he's not really going to be pushing the ball into tight coverage. He's just going to take care of the ball and make necessary throws when he can. So this makes a lot of sense if we want a bridge option and don't want to push a rookie right in the starting lineup, because I do think once we get to the rookies, the Patriots will end up selecting a rookie quarterback. But I think Jacoby could maybe be the starter at the beginning of the year or just a backup that they could turn to if that rookie struggles or gets hurt, kind of like that Colts situation last year. So, Jacoby to the Patriots, back to the Patriots, back home. Now, let's get to the draft and the quarterbacks that I think will be drafted early in the NFL draft. The first overall pick is Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears. I do believe the Bears will end up trading Justin Fields to the Las Vegas Raiders, potentially the Atlanta Falcons, but more likely the Las Vegas Raiders. Caleb Williams will be their selection. I believe the Bears are a lot closer to contention with their current roster and the makeup and the salary cap that they have this offseason than a lot of people think. And if Caleb Williams is as talented and as good and possesses as much potential as most NFL people and scouts believe, then this could be a home run pick. Caleb Williams could be great right away. Obviously, he has a ton of talent. He has a strong arm. He is super mobile. He reminds a lot of people of Patrick Mahomes in terms of his arm ability, his ability to make uncomfortable throws from the pocket, off-balance throws from the pocket or outside the pocket, his ability to extend plays and create magic. And that is an area where if you're going to be the first pick, you're probably not going to a great team, and you need to be able to elevate players around you. I think Williams has those traits. On top of that, physically, he looks the part. He's got a strong lower body. He's got a strong arm. He does need to learn how to process, get rid of the ball, and just overall be a more refined pocket quarterback. But, I mean, there's a little bit of nitpicking there. This guy has a lot of potential to be a superstar player, and you have to take that chance on a quarterback with the first pick. So Caleb Williams to the Bears. The next quarterback is, with the second overall selection, Jayden Daniels to the Washington Commanders. This one was tricky because I could have easily went with Drake Maye here, and I think a lot of people will go with Drake Maye here. This isn't my preference necessarily. This is just kind of thinking what the Washington Commanders might like. So first of all, their new head coach is Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn obviously had a lot of success with Matt Ryan in Atlanta, but also is from Seattle, where they were able to take a mobile young quarterback, Russell Wilson, and be successful. And I think so he has that perspective. Then you look at the offensive coordinator. It's Cliff Kingsbury. He coached the Arizona Cardinals, and he coached a lot of mobile quarterbacks in his days at Texas Tech, and I believe at Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel, with Patrick Mahomes. with Kyler Murray. So it feels like his offense is more oriented towards a guy that maybe brings some speed, some rushing ability to the table. I think he prefers that. But also Jayden Daniels is maybe a little bit more ready to play than a Drake Maye. I think there could at least be that argument due to his age, at least from a maturity standpoint. He seems to be an accurate passer, and there's a lot to like with Daniels going to the Commanders. I feel like there's more questions about Drake Maye coming from North Carolina and being, there than a guy from LSU. So I could see people being sold on Daniels over Maye with the second overall selection. I'm just trying to connect dots, and it feels like the NFL has these three pretty close in competition. First, Caleb Williams feels like he is pretty safe to go first overall, but there's a legitimate debate between Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels. On the surface, although I haven't fully scouted all three quarterbacks, on the surface of scouting them, it feels like I would prefer to go with Drake Maye over Jayden Daniels, but I don't think it's going to be like clearly decisive for NFL teams, and I think there's going to be preferences between both. So I could see Daniels going to the Commanders given the fit of the team. Next up, with the third overall selection in the NFL draft, I have the New England Patriots selecting Drake Maye out of North Carolina to pair with Jacoby Brissett. First of all, both guys are primary pocket passers, which is what I think the preference is for the Patriots. But I think the thing that will be misled for Drake Maye is he is athletic. He can scramble a bit. He's also pretty good in terms of his movement and extending plays, and he can throw from every platform. He might have the strongest arm in the class, which might be the reason why if you're the Patriots in-house and you want to go with a quarterback in a different direction from Mac Jones, you want a quarterback that can be able to rip the ball through the wind, the snow, the rain of New England and Foxborough, and Drake Maye seems to possess those traits. He does give me a lot of Justin Herbert vibes. He needs to refine some things in terms of his release point and stuff like that, but overall, he's accurate. He can carry a team. He's really good from the pocket. He's good at extending plays. He seems to possess all the skills as well as the mental makeup to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL, and he seems to fit the New England Patriots a lot. Just from like a vibes perspective, this is just kind of a feeling to it, but it feels like Daniels fits Washington and Drake Maye fits New England a bit better. I don't know. That's just kind of like my vibe test, but I like Drake Maye a lot from what I've seen so far, and I think he would make a great pick for the Patriots at third overall. Next, the fourth quarterback in the NFL draft, J.J. McCarthy. I have going to the Denver Broncos. So I already brought up how Sean Payton will likely be going after maybe a Mac Jones or a younger quarterback to develop, but why not go for both? Why not go for the draft and go for a trade or go for a free agent? I thought about like Sam Darnold as well instead of Mac Jones for the Broncos, but J.J. McCarthy's a quarterback that a lot of NFL people might like because he's really young. He's been a winner in college football. He's got some traits where he can move. He's got a pretty strong arm. He needs a lot of development. So I think it's going to take some time with him and he's going to have to sit. But Sean Payton is a guy that is a quarterback guy. He played quarterback in his college career. He is good at developing quarterbacks, tweaking quarterbacks, fixing quarterbacks. And McCarthy could be a guy that he could really groom into being a starting quarterback in the NFL. So I like a lot of those things. He also has a little bit more mobility than maybe Peyton has had in certain aspects. And maybe that's, where Russell Wilson, he liked that aspect of Russell Wilson's game. But this is also a guy in McCarthy who is a proven winner that ran the offense, right? In Michigan. He didn't try to go above and beyond. He did what he had to win in those games, even if it wasn't sexy. And that might be appealing to a guy like Peyton, who likes to run his plays. Let's be fair. So the final quarterback here is going to be Michael Penix of Washington. And this one is mostly for fun, but why not the Seahawks? Let's stay in Washington State. It was good for Penix in college football, and it feels like a fit. He does have some good things about him in terms of reminiscent Geno Smith traits. Pretty strong arm, downfield passing attack, accuracy, a hint of mobility, and he might be able to use a year sitting behind a veteran quarterback and a really good teammate and leader like Geno Smith to really learn the NFL. So Michael Penix would be, I think, a great addition for a team like Seattle that maybe is looking at their quarterback situation. They don't necessarily want to move on from Geno Smith right away because they feel like they can win with him in the next year or two. But they could also look at Geno and say, we don't really want to extend him. We don't really want to pay him in his next contract. We think his time is up after this. So let's take a chance on a rookie, a guy that we could maybe get in the second round or something like that, and develop him into our potential starter. So it makes a lot of sense for a team like the Seahawks or maybe the Vikings to go after Michael Penix in the NFL draft. Those are your quarterback destinations for the 2024 NFL offseason. If you enjoyed this video, Gronk spike the like button. Let me know in the comments your opinion. It's Mitch. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Deuces.